Hello everyone and welcome back once again to the Mania 4Key World Cup 2023. Or actually, this will be the first time you are here for the 2023 edition at least. But hey, it's a pleasure to meet you all. We are live on stage at COE this time around. We'll be revealing the qualifiers. And of course, this is kind of a new experience to everyone really. I don't think we have ever seen a World Cup stream live like this, so it's gonna be very fun. My name is Juan Cristal, commentary of the Mania World Cup team, and joined by Paturaj.
Yes, I am a commentator and also part of the map pooling team. I will be like the representative of the map pooling team, as well, Mint is a little bit too far.
About, what is it, 14,000 kilometers away? Somewhere around that point, well.
Yeah, by the way, shout outs to the Americans who actually woke up for this, because it's really, really early for the time zone. So we thank you for like allowing us to start earlier as well.
Of course, the Asian population may be happy about this because the schedule is a little bit better for them. Should be maybe around 6 p.m. So really good for the Asian continent. And well, what else can I say? Like I said, this is the first time we're doing something like this, so hopefully it runs smoothly. I'll explain very briefly and very quickly how the qualifier works for those who don't know. We have a qualification stage where all the teams that sign up get to play each map twice and in order between stage 1 and stage 8. We have 8 different map sets to be played. Everyone has a single difficulty and test different skill sets from SVs, LNs, hybrids and Rise. And between different levels of difficulty as well. We have maps that are around round 16, quarterfinals, semifinals, and the idea is that the better teams seed better, obviously. Whoever gets the highest scores on each qualifier will get a better seed and therefore a technically easier matchup going into the round of 32, which will be double elimination as we are used to. And 8 stages this year. I don't think we had any changes compared to last year.
Yeah, the structure is going to be pretty similar, but what's not going to be similar is the overall difficulty of those maps, as you will see, well, in a moment, really.
It will get very, very tricky, guys. So I hope you train a lot, and I hope your physical abilities are on top notch, because you will not expect how hard the spools are getting this year. Last year we had a big jump already, but this year, woof, it's just going straight to the moon, I will say. I'm glad I didn't sign up for this tournament this time around, because boy will my hands hurt. And as you can see already, we are getting a little bit of feedback into the screen, and we should be about to start with the stage 1. I think Patu will be presenting you this one, because I have this feeling that he had something to do with this map. I could be wrong.
Yeah, as part of the map pooling team, I'm also in charge of the SV department of the map pooling. And so I'm probably the best mapper to actually map this kind of qualifier, because in my vision actually of the map pool, I do have a vision of what would be best to test the overall skill sets of people.
Absolutely. This is stage 1, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. If you're in here, a round of applause for the Mania World Cup showcase as we are about to start with Sakura vs. Shaz. This is Patrash's map, and it's 170 BPM to infinite BPM, so you can expect SVs a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of a slow start, kind of a reading phase with the teleports at the beginning. Very, I guess, very metronomic. And here we go for the first gimmicks. This is pretty accessible in my opinion.
It is. Yeah. Like, as you can see, the gimmick is very simple. You see one column, it has a full stop, and you have 3 notes in consecutive session. If you know the song, which I think most people will be familiar, this was used as a tiebreaker back in the days. I think it was group stage of Mania World Cup 2018 or something. So the song being reused, but now for the purpose of SVs. And most of the gimmicks, as Pat was saying, was mostly reading intensive and some amount of memo, if you will, with those one-column gimmicks. And it scales up very quickly. As you can see in this section, it's kind of the same gimmick. It's just that you don't have as much time to react to it. You kind of have to memorize how the trick was played on the previous section to hit it properly.
Yeah, like the sections are patterned more or less the same, but it's just the gimmicks that get progressive the more you go into the map. So you only really have to learn one pattern, but basically reading it is the main challenge of this qualifier. And this is pretty short, actually. This is like 1 minute and 55 seconds. So nothing too severe, but we place this on the hard side of round of 16. A little bit easier than quarterfinals, really.
And now going straight into stage 2, not wasting any sort of time. This would be, well, not necessarily your easiest pick. Some people expect stage 2 to be the easiest non-SB map, but I'll say this isn't the case. We'll have a map after this that is slightly easier. This will be around round of 16, so you might be surprised because this is very, very hard. As you can see, this already has many tricky, bursty patterns, and overall test is somewhat of a hybrid nature, if you will, but only on the rise department. And it's only 8.3, so expect a lot of accuracy drops in this tricky timing sections.
Yeah, the snaps do go everywhere, and this is just the beginning of the chart. And this file in particular is very backloaded, so what you see up front here is like not at all the most intensive part of the map at all.
Yep, not at all. When I was seeing this the first time, I was like, okay, this looks hard for round of 16, but I can see the improvement of the players. I can see the change of difficulty being somewhat of a necessity. But after you get to the last quarter of the song, you're like, okay, so players are this good now. I see. But as you see right now, the patterns, although are fast and they're bursty, they are for the most part fairly tame. There isn't many hidden mini jacks that can trip you up. Most of the patterns are somewhat rolly, and it's not extremely dense. But when we get to the ending, like you can see on the screen already, Hori is playing this. Some people might remember this player as Lothus, so one of the best Brazilian players we have ever seen, with one of the most spectacular accuracies in the game, and stage 2 and is only a 997k, so I was scared when I saw that score. And it's mostly due to the second half being very, very, very tricky. You get a little bit of a break here, which in my opinion doesn't really help. If anything, it only hurts your accuracy to have such a break here. You need to reset your timing in a way after going with very bursty patterns, and after that transition over there, we go straight into the hard parts.
Yeah, the transition is especially hard to get good accuracy on because it deals with BPM changes and so on. So, like, we are going into the last part of the map, which is by far the most intense part of the map. And also shout-outs to Alien Cart for bringing us this custom map. Every single map in the Qualifiers is custom made, by the way. Shout-out, really great shout-outs to the map pulling team and the mappers. We wouldn't be there without you.
Absolutely. And as you can see, the 174, this is our sixes, I think, right? These are very, very fast. And this is the part that gets a bit techy, so it's very hard to keep your combos up, as you might expect some misses from pretty much everyone on those mini jacks. And when the bursts get a little bit faster as well, some 200s will definitely be dropped. All the 8.3 on this is no joke. People, be careful. This is round 16 level. And let's go straight into stage 3, I think, which is arguably the easiest map of the Qualifiers pool. This is a hybrid, so you can expect a lot more lens than what you see on the previous picks. And yeah, this is around round 32 level. I will say maybe on the upper side of round 32. As you can see, this is a XI map, or song rather. And yeah, there isn't much to be expected here. It's just your average hybrid pick. You see a lens combined with Rise for the most part. Eventually some mini jacks, but the song is only 140-ish BPM, so the mini jacks are not that tricky because they are not that consecutive. It's mostly about keeping up the consistency of not dropping with the coordinations aspect this map requires. As you can see, there's many releases that are disjointed on different timings, and eventually even some flam low notes, which are very tricky to hit properly and accurately. So players fishing for very, very good ratios on this may struggle a little bit, and they definitely will have to fish for that high accuracy. I expect this pick to be one of the highest scoring picks of the pool.
Yeah, it kind of depends on the country's lineups as well, because this is pretty hard to get good accuracy on. There's a lot of coordination involved, lots of releases, as you said, and I would say as the easiest hybrid, this is very much more coordination focused than what you will see later on the later part of the Qualifiers map pool.
Yep, and you certainly have not seen the LM pool yet. This is just a hybrid. And I think this kind of complements a little bit one of the things that I believe the other two Olympics that we're going to see later lacks a little. And it's this somewhat slow coordination release aspect of the game that a lot of people struggles with, because sometimes when the releases are fast enough, you can cheese most of it without dropping too much accuracy. But when the BPM is this low and you have like gaps of 1/4 and even 1/6 sometimes, you really have to pay attention to those release timings properly, or you will drop your accuracy quite a lot. And a map like this, when every 200 matters for your seed, like last year we saw a finals map being dropped for exactly 3 points, so you really need to fish for the best of your accuracies every time you can. Some people may sacrifice some of their accuracies on this kind of pattern specifically with the burst DLNs, but other than that, you really have to be very sharp with the Jags.
Yeah, so shoutouts to Elixir. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Correct me if I'm wrong, really, but I think this mapping style is very reminiscent of Elixir's hybrids, which we have used a lot throughout tournaments. So people familiar with the current tournament meta, will not be estranged by this kind of hybrid.
20-to-1 ratio, casual play by Lotus again.
Yeah,
kind of a beast. And now into stage 4. Oh boy, stage 4. So some people may know my mapping style as timing hell. Well, this is kind of like a timing hell, but in qualifiers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a collab between Ravili and Mysterion. And this is 5.5 stars already. So very, very tricky. 250 BPM, very, very fast. End of Fairy Tale. And yeah, just what you would expect for a random normal timing hell, really. A lot of anchored releases and very tricky to coordinate properly due to the high BPM.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is quarterfinals level, by the way. And the fact that we're going this hard in quarterfinals kind of spells the landscape of the entire map pool as we have planned it for this year.
Yep, you can see there's like 2, maybe 3 node anchors a lot of the time, and they are very, very tricky to coordinate. This is one of those maps that is either very easy to miss if you're not fast enough, or very hard to time if you're too fast for it. So you really need to adjust your timing for this to be perfect. This mapping style specifically, and this part specifically, which is very, very heavy into the coordination, you really have to pay attention to that third and second column through those transitions. They're mostly isolated in one hand, so you can play the other hand without worrying too much about it. But if you don't identify that specific portion of the map, you can easily drop a lot of misses, and you can easily sort of column block in them. Somewhat of an embassy section here, very, very fast. And like I said, you really need to adjust your timing here if you want to hit good accuracy and not many misses. Like, this is a time of map that when you start dragging, you just hit 200, 200, 200, 200, 200, and it just doesn't stop. It's very hard to adjust in the middle due to how fast it is and how small the gaps between the releases and the hits are. The shields on this are very, very rough.
Yeah, just listen to the timing hell expert here, him with the best. And well, what he doesn't know the best is that he's been feeding you misinformation this entire time. This is not a collab with Mysterion.
Oh, it's not with Mysterion.
Oh.
I thought it was.
Chat will tell you the truth, really.
I thought it was. So is it just a Ravili char then? Never mind.
I don't actually know. Well, in any case, there are also like very speedy parts in between those coordination bits, and at 250 BPM, that is pretty chokeable.
Well, at least it's OD7, right?
And this is OD7, yeah, so it is pretty forgiving compared to the rest of the qualifiers, but
Oh, stage 5. Oh, the hit sounds.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, have fun. I think we can describe this map as have fun map. 6 stars a lens, 7.7, not 727 OD, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're really hitting the jackpot here with a toe density. And that's still quarterfinals level, by the way. 6 stars qualifier. I think that's a first.
Is it? I thought, yeah, it's actually a first, probably. We haven't seen star rating going this hard in qualifiers before, but if there is one map to do it, it's usually the LM density pick. And Tove is no exception. He's very good at doing this kind of maps. He's very known as well for this type of things, as well as maps like Penguinosity. But yeah, this is just your 200 BPM density chart. Is very, very, very dense. It has a lot of hands and jumps in between, and pretty much impulse patterning along the entire way of this. You have some gaps that are bigger than the others, so it's not tunnel vision. You can just tunnel vision through this and impulse play most of it, because not only you have different gap sizes, but also you have bursts in between. So you have to be very, very careful with this. Although I expect this LN map to have better scores on average than the previous one, because this has like the density check. Like if you can hit the density of this, if you can do 200 BPM hunt streams and LNs, then you will be mostly fine with this. With the timing hill, you can easily choke, but this map is not as chokeable if you can control the speed and the density, really.
Yeah, like the speedy bits of this qualifier at 200 BPM of the way is pretty demanding, and this is really gonna separate the ones who are really comfortable with this type of map and the ones who will be kind of fighting for a good team score. And let us remind you that this is a team tournament, so it doesn't matter if you have a lead player who can do like 995k or whichever score. Your entire team has to be on point during those qualifiers.
You really, really have to be in point for this one. As you can see, there's a V1SS. I expect to see some of them. Wow, straight to stage 6 without much time to think about it. And oopsie, we are getting into the Camellia portion of the map pool, as we have what I believe is kind of like the tiebreaker of qualifiers, if you will.
Yeah, that's Camellia, and it's pretty. I think it's structured kind of pretty typically of a Camellia song. So it starts with a lot of physicality. This is 238 BPM, OD 7.8, if I'm reading correctly.
That's correct. Yep.
So this is brought to us by Gooden, or should I say Hoden, as we are in the Netherlands right now.
Oh my god. That makes sense. But yeah, this is kind of like your tiebreaker-ish structure. It's another hybrid pick. This is on the harder side compared to what we saw on stage 3. And as you see, the patterns are less forgiving. You have very small gaps between the LNs, and in 238 BPM, that's very, very rough. And you have to transition between playstyles, right? Because you have the LNs at some point, and then into Rise, it can be hard to read, especially if your skin is not adjusted properly. So some people will want to maybe use different skins to play this particular map. And you just have every sort of challenge. Like if you had to make a tiebreaker of the qualifying pool, it would be this map, really. You have very dense long nose sections with very tricky pseudo inverse patterns into jacks and into coordination, into tech. So you pretty much have a little bit of everything. These LM patterns with the jacks are so evil.
Yeah, a lot of the difficulty of this qualifier is going to be transitional, really. The transitions are really not forgiving at all. And Gooden really did a great job at making this as dense and as challenging as it possibly can be for the hard hybrid qualifier. And we placed this as slightly hard on the hard side of
the quarterfinals.
Yeah, if I recall correctly.
Mostly due to the BPM. I think the patterns are rude, but the BPM is really what makes the difference here. It's very, very fast and very hard to control. So expect a lot of chokes on it. And now into stage 7, which is Katagiri. This is about 12,000 BPM or something. But now it's, of course, 250 BPM. It's a very fast, sort of, I don't want to call this consistency pick. Some people like to call this the physical rise pick, if you will, because it's full of jump string, very dense jump string. It has some amount of tag, jump trailing, and bursty patterns. So you go back and forth between jump stream, dump stream, hand stream, I guess, a little bit of tech in between, and it's just rough. Like 8.5 OD is extremely hard to act, 250 is extremely fast, and the patterns are, for the most part, especially at the intro, somewhat tricky because there's a lot of trills involved. But as we get into the map, we will start to get a little bit more rolly, and the patterns will be a little bit more comfortable. But it's really just a mix and match between different patterning in the jump string. So that makes this a map very weird to play, really, because you're transitioning between a style of jump streaming and another type of jump streaming. So
oh no, those jacks
yeah, the jacks are very tricky. The 1/3 are very tricky here, but they are kind of like an indicator of pattern is changing to more rolly style to less rolly style for the most part. And it's not that rolly style is harder or tech style is harder. Both are equally hard in some ways, but the fact that you have to transition between one and the other is what makes this map very challenging.
Also, yeah, this is very Mint core in well, this is brought to us by Mint. By the way, happy birthday, Mint!
Yeah, happy birthday, Mint. Thank you for map selecting for this World Cup. The audience is cheering for you a little bit.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, if you remember Min's Ikenai Borderline, for example, from last year, Min's patterning is like very, it adheres pretty unforgivingly according to the music, and this is no exception really. So lots of trills for phases, some jump as well for transitions. Those broken jump streams might be harder to act than the sustained ones, and those mini jacks those mini jack sections are also part of what tests consistency. We don't want to call this a jump stream qualifier. This is really consistency.
And I bet this looks very hard and it's very fast. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the highest scoring qualifiers overall. Like, if you have the speed to control this, you should be for the most part fine. Like, some of the patterns are good, but most of it is just tunnel vision your way with the jump streams. You have to pay attention to those gaps because this section of broken jump streams can be tricky to read if you're not used to this speed, really. But if you have that down, you should probably be fine if you can play 8.5 OD at this speed. But of course, we have the last qualifier now, stage 8. And yeah, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I will call nuts.
Yeah, no, really, I think this qualifier this qualifier was brought to us from the multiverse. So yep. Basically, anyways, this was brought to us by Darkstar or DZ as.
Wait, this is 4.99 stars? I didn't know this.
Huh? Wait, this must be wrong.
It has to be wrong. Like, when you see the map, you'll be like, there's no way this is 4.99 stars. This is like integral cube levels of underrated star rating, because this is extremely hard. It's very, very dumpy. There's a lot of hidden mini jacks, as you can see through the pattern, although this looks extremely fun to play. So if you have the physical capabilities, because this isn't just about speed. Sure, you have 150 BPM, but most of this is 1/8. So it's tricky to hit properly. But if you have the speed, this is so fun. Like, you can listen to the music and see very clearly what the intent of the mapper is with the direction of the rolls and the mini jacks. They all make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the song helps a lot in defining the direction of this really hard technical Rise qualifier. And I think this is by far the hardest qualifier, by far the hardest map in the qualifiers pool.
Yeah, we would categorize this to be around the semifinals level. So yeah, you can just see it by yourself. Most of it is single streaming, but the patterning of the single streams makes this very, very challenging to hit properly, and mostly because of the BPM being so high. Like, just as a 1/8ers, I'm pretty sure 300 BPM is very, very tricky to hit, like those hidden mini jacks. And you can see a lot of them, and you have to transition between that motion of rolly, maybe bursty, into core jacks even at some point. So it's very, very tricky to act properly. It requires a lot of control to hit this kind of burst. And I don't expect many teams to have like 3 players that are very capable of hitting this.
And I think, as opposed to the break in stage 2, which will bother people trying to act.
No, this is definitely needed.
This is definitely a break that people will need, because what we've seen until now was very, very intense. And also, this is 3 minutes and 31 seconds.
I think this is the longest qualifier, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty long. That's pretty long, yeah. But yeah, 499, and this is the hardest qualifier. That just comes to show that starting is not everything.
Well, to be fair, you have a fair amount of like downtime here. You have about 15 seconds to recover your stamina from those very fast and tricky bursts. But into the last quarter of the song, as we're about to enter, the rolls are back. And not just back, but also with very heavy mini jacks and core jacks, so you have to be very, very careful with them.
Yeah, I think the last part is the one that people will have to pay the most attention to, because look at those anchors.
Oh my god, and it's just all, like, the rhythms are broken all over the place. You have gaps between the jumps, and that is very hard to read, but not just that, you also have the very tricky patterning on the burst, the back and forth trails, the mini jacks all over the place, the inner columns are just stacked all the time during this chart. And this portion is where we're going to see a lot of teams dropping a lot of their combos and accuracies. But if you can hold this long, and you can hold until this point, then Congratulations, Ryan. You're very good at the game. This stage is no joke, and it's about the semifinals level. So this is still not showcasing what we want to display at the very end of it, but we don't really think is needed. Once you get to this point, we assume that you will probably be good enough to play the finals. We're hoping anyway.
Yeah, that's just a tiny portion of what we have to provide to you for the entire tournament. Like, the qualifiers are basically the taste tester for the entire tournament, and well, I've been overseeing this this pooling process with along with Min Guden and Mystarion, and wow, there's such an enormous amount of work being put behind the scenes. You cannot imagine. And yeah, and also the maps will be uploaded very soon. I do have a map to upload.
Oh, we're uploading it live?
I mean, I can.
Oh, that would be very funny.
I mean, I could. I very well could.
Well, as they were saying, yeah, the map pools should be available on the Discord server if you're a player. They should be uploaded on the wiki fairly soon as well. So stay tuned for that. As Patu is uploading the SV map right now, because we've been busy this last couple of days, I will say, and of course we didn't want to reveal the map pools in advance. So they should all be uploaded fairly soon. Don't worry too much about it. And yeah, you still have a full week. I believe the schedules of the qualifiers will be released between today and tomorrow, as is usually done. And you can always request the schedules. In qualifiers specifically, I'm not so sure if you are also allowed to request a time yourself for the qualifier. I believe you can. So if you do have any problems with the timing, you can always schedule. And of course, the qualifiers are not going to be streaming. Only the season reveals will be streamed next weekend. And maybe take this time a little bit to talk about some changes in the format for this Mania World Cup compared to the previous one. Some of you may not know, but we are implementing, yeah, it's literally being uploaded right now. Some changes we have this year compared to the previous one is the Protect system, I believe, is being implemented this year, which is something we've been testing out in community tournaments before with fairly good results. So this year, I wouldn't be surprised if SVs become the most popular category to be played instead of being banned, because you get a Protect before you get a ban. So teams that are prolific playing SVs will likely want to protect their SV pick so it doesn't get banned by the other team. And yeah, that will make things fairly interesting. I expect sweeps to not be that of a common thing now that SVs are almost always going to be open. So this system should allow teams to showcase their strengths the best, right? Because it's not only with SVs, some teams are very specifically good at something and they really want to use that pick to their advantage, and that's where their Protect comes in play. But sometimes you can not only protect your strength, but you can also protect the other team's weakness. And I think that is the most interesting factor you can apply. Like, maybe a team is very bad at Kojaks and you know they're going to ban it. You can protect the Kojak pick so you have an option to break at any point if you really want to. So very interesting format and very interesting new rule that is being implemented this year for the Mania World Cup. We're very excited to see the results of it.
Yeah, as the Nets people are very excited for Protect. It has made a mainstay in the previous like very big tournaments, so really excited to see it in MWC and beyond, even for other modes.
That's exactly true. And well, I think that will be about it. I'm not sure if you have anything else to say, Patu, about this, or we can just call it quit.
There's a 1v1 tournament going on. That's the standard 1v1 tournament, I believe.
Correct. As you can see on the screen right there, it's a 1v1 tournament. It's going to be the quarterfinals match. I believe this is a match that was missing from yesterday, and it's going to be played now here at stage in about 30 minutes. It's going to be Flying Tuna versus Ninerik. So you definitely don't want to miss that match. I think they are like very, very close in skill levels. So it should hopefully be a very intense match. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a tiebreaker, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, on watching matches on stage is always very, very fun to do. So it will be streamed on the COE channel. So us live people will want to go there if they want to see the match. But if not, it's fine. And yeah, I think that's about it for the 4K Mania World Cup.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks the map selectors for preparing this amazing map for us. A round of applause here for everyone involved in the Mania World Cup. In the crowd here, we see a lot of Mania players and not Mania players as well. So yeah, Patu?
We also have a weird event at the second stage.
That is true.
That is mania.
For those that are
oriented.
here on the COE event, we will have something funny prepared on the second stage. I think there's two funny things. One of them is going to be maybe a live mapping display of Bad Apple. You may know that song. I think it's fairly popular. Some people told me they have a cool video as well. And of course, we have a recording to do session for a new feature artist that is coming to us at some point. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be very fun. If you're at COE, you don't want to miss it. It will be on the second stage. We'll probably do a showcase there, and then we'll be recording someplace for the news post that is going to be at the website soon. So yeah, it's you don't want to miss it, I think. But yeah, that's it for us. Patu, it's been a pleasure as always to commentate with you. I believe this is a duo that gets repeated fairly often during the World Cup, so it's very comfortable as always to commentate with you and live here for the first time. This is the first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. Well, I think that's it. I don't think we're forgetting anything. We'll give you more details in the MWC server for the players. And as always, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, it goes in the Discord. Anyways, see ya.
Hello everybody, welcome to the 10th edition of the Mania 4K World Cup. This is the year where we are hosting 10 events. Over 4 keys being smashed competitively from the old days of Arcanoli Virus and ABC Lula to present day of Boji and Polka. The countries that stood at the top of the pedestal have barely changed between 3 countries, and yet we still come back for more because you know that there is always a chance for war. My name is Raviel, back for the 3rd event, and with me, back for his 7th, is Potassium F. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well here. This is, of course, Asian time zone casting for this, 7 a.m., 5 a.m., depending on where you are commentating. So both of us are fairly tired, of course, but we're going to get straight into it here. We have overall, I think, 43 teams had rosters this year. And unfortunately, between those, only 32 can make it. And just before we get into things as well, I think there were 2 teams that unfortunately didn't manage to end up playing a lobby for the qualifiers. So that was Saudi Arabia and I think Honduras, was it?
Yes, that is correct. Saudi Arabia and Honduras are 2 out of the 5 new teams that registered for the tournament. And also on top of that, 2 additional teams that didn't show up for 2022 that are also making a reappearance this year.
Yeah, but anyway, let's get into the seed because I think it may take a fair amount of time to get through all 41 remaining teams. So, what's going on?
Are we having the first team on screen? I think we are.
Oh yeah, I can't see anything. Oh, I think the first thing is on screen. I just can't see it. Anyway, so 41st, yeah, 41st is on screen. 41st seed is going to be Panama, unfortunately. So this is the lowest seed out of the seeds that out of the people that did play. So unfortunately, Panama, we're not going to be seeing in the bracket stage. We can see here, though, LN's fairly good, actually, in comparison to some of the other stages. So just kind of struggled a lot with the rice pool for the most part here, and the SV, of course.
Yeah, this year we have upped the difficulty in the qualifier map pool. So you'll definitely see a lot of teams, especially Panama, with only 4 players, definitely struggling with the increase of difficulty. And like you mentioned, LN definitely not too bad, but the other 3 stages finishing dead last is just it just goes to show like how high we have pushed this year's qualifiers.
Yeah, map pool is insanely hard for sure compared to last year.
Yeah, and we can actually move on to the next country, which is one of the brand new teams that has never registered for the 4K World Cup ever, which is Austria, which I find a little bit hard to believe because you would think Austria, as like a country in O's, would have a lot of prominent players in different game modes, but this is their first ever 4K squad, and not a bad showing on the SV, finishing 35th, but again, not really having the prowess to finish anything higher than 39th in the other three aspects.
Yeah, doing a little bit better in the Rice and the SV, as you said, overall. Struggling a bit more with the LN here, but yeah, overall, it just seems that for some of these teams, especially with the teams with 4 players only, you really end up struggling across the board with so many different skill sets tested, and, you know, they're hard. We keep saying that, but oh my god.
They are hard, but you'll see once we get to the top that even though we say that this pool is really hard, a lot of players smashed these maps.
Yeah, the great separating maps here for the qualifiers, but I guess we'll move on now to the next one. Czechia this year actually not making the cut for top 32. They did make the top 32 last year, of course, having Grill Roasted being one of the best LN players in the world, but unfortunately it seems like the team as a whole struggled, getting around seed 38 for most of this, struggling a little bit more with the hybrids.
Yeah, so another trend that we will also see with some of these teams being eliminated from the qualifiers is that they will have one really outstanding player, like you've mentioned, Grill Roasted, definitely basically trying to pull the weight of Czechia over to the top 32, but just unfortunately not being able to do so with their second and third player lacking.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame not to see Grill Roasted in the bracket stage, but that's how it goes with some of these teams. A lot of talented players we're not going to manage to see, unfortunately.
Yeah, with that being said, we can move on to seed number 38, which is going to be Norway, which personally I'm surprised because Norway not only just finished top 32 last year, they have a full squad of 6. So again, this tournament is really competitive. You see Rice, they finished 35th, which is pretty outstanding for their seeding, but the other 3 stages just not able to pull them over the line.
Yeah, this one, and actually both of these teams, Czechia and Norway, are actually a little bit of a surprise here because, as you said, they qualified last year with a smaller roster, and they've kept most of the same roster from last year and just added new players. So you would think that this Norway squad would do better than last year, but it really just goes to show there are so many teams. I think so many of the mid-level to like lower end teams have gotten such a massive upgrade that now the bottom end is just so ridiculously competitive. So next here we've got Puerto Rico being seed number 37. So this is another team actually of only 4 players. Got 2 really strong players here with Jadix and Orgi, but overall struggling a little bit on the more physical Rice maps. But actually very close to getting, top 32 with the LN overall.
Yeah, you mentioned LN finishing 33rd here. I'm looking at SV finishing 31st. This is going to be the first team that we are showcasing so far that has a top 32 skill set.
Yeah, SV's a nice one to make it in.
Yeah, and this is also one of the very few countries that have never registered before. So, new face. Hopefully, we will get to see them more often in the next few editions of the World Cup. Next up, we have Denmark, another team fielding a full roster, not making the top 32. This is one of the 2 countries that didn't register for last year's edition, but have been a recurring occurrence over the last couple of years. That SV, 29th, really impressive, but Rice and Hybrid 36, LN 35, just pulling them down to 36, just a bit shy of the top 32.
Yeah, fairly consistent rankings across the board there. Obviously SV being the outlier, so really strong team at SV, but all of them just being a little bit shy of the 32 mark means that the average goes down just a little bit. But yeah, this team is fairly strong, so we're seeing quite a lot of them drop out here as we're getting closer and closer to that 32 mark. We'll have a look at the next one here. Guatemala, this is another one of the new teams, I believe, making it to seed 35, so just a little bit shy of the top 32 once again. And we can see actually now the full skill sets in LN and Hybrid are both in the top 32. So this team can make it by their LN abilities alone, you would have to imagine. But at the same time, the SV was where they really struggled, and just the accuracy and the rise, stage 2 as well.
Yeah, you could imagine if they just had a better SV, how high they could place. Maybe even top 32 as a brand new addition, like you've mentioned. That would be very interesting to see, with a 4-player roster as well, but unfortunately it just isn't meant to be.
Yeah, have to imagine that, with a full roster, maybe this team comes back next year and could potentially make top 32.
Next up, we have Switzerland, another one of the two countries that didn't show up for last year's edition, but have been a recurring country over the last couple of editions. So, as we can see, very balanced across the board. 34th in Rise, 34th in SV, 33rd in Hybrid. No skill set above 33, but they managed a 34th seeding just because of the consistency, and that Tanny Muho 29th is also really impressive.
Yeah, we can see, stage 2 being 32, stage 3 being 29. So some of these like earlier game, like easier, quote unquote, easier maps, physically, Switzerland are fairly good with. It's mostly just, the later stages, stage 8, stage 6 as well. Those really intense physical challenges there are where Switzerland struggle a little bit more with. And that unfortunately cost them the seeding here. And now is the worst possible seed to get. 33 is coming up next.
Oh,
a bit of heartbreak is going to happen here. Romania, unfortunately, just by 1 seed, is going to fail to make the cut this year for the top 32. And we can see how close this is overall. Once again, the LNs being 31 and 32. The hybrids being 32 and 30, this is definitely, those scores are definitely good enough to be top 32, but even the Rice, Rice overall is 33rd. So it's just barely, by the smallest of margins, making it out of that top 32, and the SV, I think, is where most of the damage was done here. 38, unfortunately, drops their seed just a little bit underneath the seed 32.
Yeah, 2 main factors that, have Romania and 33rd, like you mentioned, the SV really destroying their chances making it to the top 32, but also their roster only having 4 players. I remember their roster from last year at least having more than 4, so that's also going to hurt. But with that all out of the way, all of the eliminated countries now being shown, if you've been keeping tabs, there is one country in the top 32 that is brand new. We have never seen this country play in 4K World Cup history, and they will be in the top 32. So if you've been keeping tabs, maybe you might know. But with that being said, we will be introducing our top 32, starting off with Venezuela. This is their first return to the top 32 since 2021, and they are looking really good in the SV department.
Oh, that SV is definitely really solid. The Rice as well deserves a really strong mention here. 27 in stage 8, 29 in stage 7. So this has some late game potential in this team. Of course, seeing some of Yuko Fangirl scores in particular, that is some fairly scary scores that this team can put up. So yeah, overall, we're going to go into the next one here. Seed 31, Ukraine is going to manage to make the cut this time. Last year, just barely managing to, well, not managing to make it last year. They've done it this year, 31. And it's going to be on the back of a really, really strong, look, this is the highest seeding we've seen for an individual map so far. Seed 18 on the SV, and also really strong rise scores overall.
Yeah, that SV score sticks up like a very sore thumb, and that is basically the reason why Ukraine have made it to the top 32 for the first time ever in 4K World Cup history, with a full roster no less. This is going to be a historic event for Ukraine, and hopefully we'll get to see some bits of magic from players like Not Who You Are and Lon Bertzen, who have been playing Mania for a pretty long time. But yeah, next up we have Colombia making a return to the top 32, also with Venezuela for the first time since 2021 with a full roster, and that rise is very scary when you see their stage 8, 23rd. That's a really high placement.
Yeah, overall, this is a really scary rise team. 24th, and most of that's actually off the back of not just stage 2, but it's stage 7 and 8. It's the harder of the rise stages where they've got that seed number 20, seed number 23. So this is a team that can play hard maps for sure, and we know a little bit of information that the map pool is going to start out harder than it did last year, so that might benefit them a little bit in the early pools. SV does seem to be a little bit of a weakness though, overall 36 there, but not enough to drag down their seeding too much. So next off here, we've got Finland coming in with a full roster, going to be placing a little bit higher than last year. No, actually a bit lower than last year. Seed 29 this year compared to the 25th of last year, but still making the cut. Pretty consistent team overall, getting top 32 in all skill sets, but just with a little bit better at the late game Rice and the SV in particular.
Yeah, seeing them score high in SV is gonna be something that we'll have to see over the next few teams, because SV is definitely going to be one of those skill sets that is going to pull some of these lower seeded teams slightly higher. And I think you've mentioned Finland placing 25th. That's just the placement of where they ended up. I think their seeding was 28th. So it was just one seed lower, not much of a change from last year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, we can move on to the next team, Team Sweden. First of all, we gotta mention the elephant in the room. Hello, SV 10th. We're seeing our first ever top 10 in a skill set in this qualifier showcase, and it comes from seed 28. That is incredible.
That is impressive. From a seed down here, seed 10. Yeah, top 10 on SV. There's a lot of good SV teams as well to contend with. That's just a really, really strong score. I think basically every team, or most teams that Sweden come across, are gonna ban SV, you would have to imagine, unfortunately now.
Yeah, that's gonna be very interesting to see. This is the same reaction that I've kind of got with like Spain from last year, where Spain finished like 3rd in the SV. This is the similar reaction, because there are some teams that Sweden beat on the SV that are top seed, like top 8. So you'll see later who we will be talking about.
Yeah, next team we're going to see here is going to be Taiwan at seed number 27. So, bit of a nice showing from them this year. Struggling on some of the late game, actually struggling with a little bit of the late game Rice. Getting 33 on stage 7. 32 on stage SV, just good enough to make it there. But where they really shine here is in, stage 2, stage 3 there. So the easier Rice pick being 18th, and then the easier hybrid being 15th. So I think in the early stages in particular, round of 32, potentially round of 16 as well, this Taiwan squad is going to be very, very strong.
Yeah, they finished 30th in seed last year, so a huge improvement now, 27th. And that is really all due to their team being an absolute overhaul. Like, Nano's the only player from last year that stayed. So the other 5 players are all brand new, and definitely the addition of Such and Jackie, these 2 players. If you're going to watch Taiwan matches, these 2 players are definitely ones to watch out for. We can move on to seat number 26, and that is Team Germany, with a very solid hybrid performance, really solid performance throughout all the skill sets, really. And unfortunately, it is going to be a bit of a step down from last year. They finished 20th in seeding, this time 26, but this is still a really scary roster.
Yeah, the roster can still do a lot of things. Obviously, you know, JK Zhu being the star here of this team, also with a few other, actually a lot of these players on the Germany team have a lot of tournament experience as well, so that definitely helps them out quite a lot. And yeah, as you said, very well balanced overall, just struggling a little bit relatively with 7 and 8 being the very hard physical maps. So the next team we have here, going to be Argentina, coming in at seed number 25. So this one is going to be fairly, actually another decently well-balanced team, struggling with the SV a little bit more, but Rice is definitely the aim here for what we can see here. 16th, top 16 on stage 7. Means their jump stream at the very least and their physical ability is fairly high here. We can see C90, Boss Plays, names in particular that I know a lot of people know.
Yeah, this is a team, well, one of the very few teams where we're going to see one player retain from last year and the other 5 being completely new from last year. C90, the only player returning from the 2022 edition, and the rest all coming back from either 2021 or 2020, and just brand new faces. So a fresh Argentina roster ready to try and challenge for the top 16 perhaps this year. But yeah, next up, now we're entering the low seed, the top 24. We have the Netherlands. That is a really good hybrid combination of ranks. They're 23rd and 18th on both maps. Overall, doing pretty well. From last year, they were 23rd in seeding, now 24th, so not much of a change.
Yeah, overall, just very solid across the board. There's pretty much every skill set covered here. No weaknesses, you would have to say, from all of these placements here. And that's kind of what I expect a lot from Netherlands. I think almost all of these players have played for many years in tournaments as well. There's a lot of MWC experience on this team, so it makes sense that by this point that they're able to play a lot of things which can be very scary for their opponent.
Yeah, there are 3 players returning from last year, Shoira, Toxic Sen, and Samuel. And the other 3, Queenie Y, Ready Perfectly, and Cube, definitely still have some tournament experience in them, so do not be surprised if we do see a slightly deep run from the Netherlands this year.
But yeah, I think we'll be moving on. Seed number 23, it's going to be Poland. And we can see right away here, Rice. Big Rice team for sure. 16, 15, 19 on the 3 Rice maps. A lot higher overall than their LN scores and SV scores in particular.
Yeah, huge improvement from last year as well. This year they're finishing 23rd. Last year in the qualifiers they finished 27th. And really all thanks to a huge team shakeup. Like last year, they still had some very experienced players in players like Sitek, Eclipse. But this year, they've retained only 2 players and added in 4 brand new faces. And it has definitely worked out for them for the Rice.
Yeah, working out really well with the physical aspect.
We can move on to seat number 22, and that will be Team Italy. They have a very balanced overall skill set. 22, 22, 23, 24. Nothing in them. But we also have to look at their stage 2 and stage 3, a little bit of an anomaly from those two maps.
And you know what that means? That actually, if I'm versing Italy in round of 32, I'm scared. I'm really scared looking at that. Stage 2 and stage 3, that Italy's early game is going to be strong in this tournament, for sure.
Yeah, definitely going to be a team to watch out for. I believe that this is one also of the few teams that have retained 5 players and only changed 1, and that will be Faxed. Faxed, the only player not returning from last year's edition. So basically still a 2022 Italian core.
Okay. And this next one actually is going to be one that some people might be surprised with if you haven't been following that strong with the rosters. But we have Malaysia, last year's placing number 5, actually historically, a top 6 team consistently, is going to be seed number 21 this year. Unfortunately, losing a few of their players, key players from previous years, but it looks like they're still fairly strong. The LNs and hybrids in particular, not to mention the SV as well. All of these skill sets are looking really, really strong for this team.
Yeah, like you've mentioned, there are very huge omissions from last year, notably Chiwi, Neo KJE, and Apple not being present for this year's roster. And you would say that this year's roster is going to be a little bit experimental, a little bit of some new blood being added in. There are some of these players have actually featured in their recent regional tournament, the Mania Malaysia tournament. 2 of those players, Jay Lai and Tosai, finishing top 3. So we'll definitely see a bit of action from them, definitely in this year's MWC.
I think it'll be a fairly strong early game in particular. So I think whoever they're versing is going to have a bit of a rough time, especially now we're getting closer and closer to that, seed 17, seed 16. All of these matchups for these teams that we're seeing now are going to be fairly close in terms of seeding.
Yeah, let's make a move for 20th, and that is Russian Federation. Very strong overall hybrid, and Ryza struggling a little bit on stage 4 and the SV. But otherwise, this is a very solid team to appear in the low seeds.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I don't know how you scored, like, a team scored that much higher on stage 6 than stage 3. Wait, no, this is the LNs, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong cat. I can't read. Okay, 7 a.m.
still, like you mentioned, like a couple of these scores, like you see their stage 8 being better than their stage 7, like, I don't know what their skill sets are, but it is sure a unique skill set.
They look like they have overall a very strong kind of mid to late game skill set with, as you said, their stage 8 score is really strong. Their stage 5 score being their best one here relatively to the rest of the teams, and that just kind of looks like they're good with the physical maps. That's a good sign going into kind of the first few rounds that might be a bit harder than previous years.
Yeah, just a very small drop off from last year. They finished 21st in seeding last year, and this year will be 20th.
Yeah, okay. So this next team here, going to be one that I know very well. It's going to be Australia, getting to seed 19. Yeah, and we can see this team is an LN team for sure this year. We have the second seed number 10 out of all of our teams here on stage 5. That is going to be the LN kind of density maps. LN maps overall look really strong, including, stage 3, which is the more LN-ish hybrid, you would say. And actually, SV didn't expect that, but okay.
A huge surprise coming in from Australia, and last year they finished 22nd in seeding. So this is an improvement to a team of a huge mixed bag of experience and brand new players. 1 player retained from last year, which is Ruka, and the other 5 players returning either from past editions or not at all. And I have to mention one player in particular, which is Animgo, who has not made a 4K World Cup appearance since 2019. That is 4 years of being out of this tournament, coming back in, stepping up for Australia, and giving them a huge boost for this year's World Cup.
Yeah, Animgirl being one of the first Delta players. That was a thing back in the day. But now everyone is, so... we can see just a quick mention as well. The late game does look a little bit lacking here from the seedings. Seeds 6, 7, 8 actually were what dragged down the seeding a lot. I think the rest of the seeds looking like kind of close to top 16 even. So it actually looks fairly scary for any team versing Australia in the early stages.
Yeah, we can move on to seed number 18, and that is France. They are LN. They are an LN team. 11th on End of Fairy Tail, 17 on Ultra Happy Miracle. This is a very scary team. If you're gonna have to face them on LNs, you gotta be careful. And they finished 13th last year, so a step down just ever so slightly, but this is still such a scary roster. And to think that they're in the bottom half, whoever has to face them from the top half, oh, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, I don't even think, saying that it's a step down in terms of seeding, that's not even due to the players themselves. I think most of the players, the team actually looks perhaps even a little bit stronger than last year. But yeah, I think it's mostly just due to some of these teams in the middle seedings have gotten significantly better with so many roster changes. Yeah, and overall, yeah, we know for sure France are going to be a really scary team though to look out for. LNs and hybrids, big strength here.
Yeah, so 2 changes from this squad. Pimo and Grey Hard Rock swapping out for Barbie Bell Blue and Naohashi. Naohashi definitely one of the players that I've recognized being here and there in the top ranks of Mania, so very excited to see them play for this year's edition.
Okay, next one here. This is going to be the United Kingdom at seed number 17, coming off the back of 7th place last year, so a little bit of a step down. They have missed out on some of their players. It's a fairly new team, all things considered, but keeping Zubin and Newson means that this team is going to be ridiculously strong on the Rice, and that is reflected for sure in their qualifier scores here.
Yeah, this is gonna be one of the few teams that have made huge changes, and you can definitely tell that they've been hit by those changes. Similarly to Malaysia, they've lost a lot of experience, a lot of quality, but this is also the chance for the other 4 players not returning from last year to step up for the United Kingdom. And we are at seed 17, which means that the next country to show up will have to face them.
Oh yeah, we're going to see our first matchup very soon here.
And the first matchup is Mexico. Last year, not even making it to the top 32. They finished 36 in qualifiers. And immediately after one single year, jumps into the top half with such a solid hybrid score on Onslaught.
Yeah, this is definitely a team that I think, if you were looking at the rosters carefully, I think you definitely saw this team as a really strong potential to go far in the tournament overall. This is a really stacked roster for Mexico. And, okay, I'm going to even admit, I didn't even expect their LNs and hybrids to be this strong, but it seems like that's even the strength point that they might look to tackle against some of the other teams in their matchups.
Yeah, this is a relatively new team. I think only 2 players returning from last year. So a couple of players unknown, but you still have the addition of Plutus. So this team, mix of old, mix of new, we're gonna see how well they'll do this year.
Okay, and now we have this next team. This is going to be Peru at seed 15, top half of the ones that made it. And once again, we're seeing another Rice team coming out here. We've seen a couple of these in the last few seeds, but look at these scores, 12th, 14th, 11th in the Rice. and the SV as well helping out there with the seeding overall. A little bit weaker in the LN, and it's going to be an interesting matchup. Peru versus France, I believe, is going to be the matchup here.
That is a very scary matchup. And for those players in the chat that might have noticed, no Zero this year, but that doesn't seem to have affected the qualifier seeding at all, because last year they finished 15th in seed, this year 15th, so no change.
Yeah, Peru has come a long way over the last few years from that Zero era back then. Now they have a whole roster. These players are all really, really strong.
Yeah, we can move on to find out who faces, oh my gosh, Pot.
Yeah. I
Singapore is facing Australia. Oh my gosh, okay. Team Singapore, seed 14th. Very solid SV, very solid LNs. And I can't believe I'm saying this for the first time in how long, but Singapore are no longer a Rice team.
That is an interesting thought for sure, but yeah, keeping only 2 players, I think, from last year, being Aishteru, also known as Xven, and Sukidayo. And you know what? After seeing those names, yeah, it does look really, really strong with the LN. The other 3 of these players, actually, McButt, Oyama Mashiro, and Neon Hooray, coming from the 4DM, 4-digit Mania World Cup Singapore team.
Yeah, a couple of these teams definitely have been scouting from 4DM, and Singapore is definitely the biggest example of that. Half of their team basically from 4DM, and the other half of the team being experienced MWC players. So very interesting to see how well they will do for this year's edition now with the mix of new blood. Singapore, they finished 6th in seeding last year, so definitely a drop-off, but we'll have to see how far they can go. I think they can go pretty far, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. It's always scary seeing Aishteru on the team.
Oh yeah.
One of the best players in the tournament last year. So yeah, we can move on now. Spain is going to be seed number 13. And this is a little bit of an off-balance team. Definitely very, very, very strong on Rice. That much is for certain. SV as well. We're getting our first single digit, I believe, coming out here. Number 7 for the SV.
Yeah, last year, they kind of proved to all of us that they are extremely good at SV, and this year, no different, 7th, like you've mentioned. And last year, they finished 16th in qualifiers, so an upgrade from last year. I believe Spain, they made a couple of changes. They kept Godak, Enthalpy, and It's Darius from last year, and the other 3 players are absolutely brand new, so a chance for those 3 players to make an impact.
Yeah, for sure. Spain are going to be versing up against Russian Federation in the first round. So a lot of really exciting matches here. Tense matches between these teams.
Oh, is this my turn? Oops, my
Yeah,
bad.
it's yours. Yeah,
this
yeah.
is Hong Kong, seat number 12. Hello, hybrids. What the heck is that? Top seed on both hybrids? Okay.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
interesting.
ridiculous.
It's rare to see a team where you can say that this is a hybrid team. I mean, I guess in this case they're also a really, really strong LN team overall. But yeah, this is a absolutely terrifying Hong Kong team. I think last year they definitely showed it, but this year, you know, they've got the full team back again. They've got Reese's, Meg Mewtwo, Osu Degen Stage 5, also known as Murasame, for people that know that name, and Quotient, of course, as well. There are so many really, really strong players, and all extremely well-versed in tournaments as well.
Yeah, they basically kept their 2022 core from last year, only changing 2 players, adding in Raksak and so on. So definitely we'll have to see what those 2 can do to this team. But they will be facing Malaysia in the round of 32.
That's a bit of an interesting matchup. Both teams really strong in the LN and hybrids. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, seed 11 now,
Oh my gosh.
close to the top
SV.
10. And oh my, yeah, well, it's Canada. This is the SV. I feel like it's been a few years now that I've seen Canada's SV be ridiculously strong here. Of course, some of these players on the team are SV specialists. I know Piggy and Walmart in particular are like exceptionally strong SV players, and that's definitely shown here. Seed number 3, top 3 in the SV, but that's not all they have. Of course, the Rice and the hybrids. Particularly this 7 and 8, stage 7 and 8, the overall physicality of this team is extremely high.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the very few exciting teams in my opinion, because they kept 4 players, Stability, Piggy, GD Mem, and Dale 940. But the players that they've brought in, Walmart and Mai ranked 5 in 4K, that's going to help Canada a lot. And this is basically your Spain moment from last year, where Spain finished 3rd in SV last year. Now Canada finishing 3rd in SV. Canada were not placed that high, I believe, last year in seeding. 19th in qualifiers last year, and this year 8 places higher.
Yeah, big improvement overall. And I think if this team manages to get far into the tournament, we can see that stage 7 and 8. And I think they are going to be able to contend with the top teams with Rice.
Yeah, and they will be facing Italy for the round of 32. Alright, and next up we have Team China. Team China has always been a huge mixed bag of you do not know what you're going to get. And I think right out of the bat, I did not know that they were placed that high on SV. Just 1 below Canada.
Yeah, that is seed 4 for SV for China. Not one that I would have expected either for sure, but looks like a really strong SV team overall. No, I'm not exactly sure who would play the SV, but the Rice is the story here once again. 9th overall, 5th on stage 8. That is ridiculously strong for the late game stuff.
Yeah, China does always seem to be a team where they consistently bring in new talent, new players from really anywhere. They only kept 2 players from last year, Sunny and Mafufu, but you have a couple of exciting players like Kaisium being added into the mix, Tyrix as well. This is going to be a team to watch out for the mid to late game. If they do make it that far, they can be a huge, scary contender. They finished 10th seed last year, so no changes from them. So definitely want to watch out. I believe they will be facing Poland in the first round.
Yeah. And I mean, the late game ability is just really strong overall. Nickname and Yasin as well joining massive late game players. So hopefully we can see China end up getting fairly far in this tournament, but we can move on now to the single digits. Gonna be Thailand at seed number 9, matching last year's placing. And ooh, look at these scores overall. Actually, it's the reverse of what we've seen for some of the teams so far. SV being the thing that's kind of dragging this team down a little bit. Seed number 23 for the SV, but 4 for the hybrid overall.
Yeah, this is one of those teams that it's gonna be rare to really say that their SV is so lacking. Like, that is such a jarring rank compared to the other placements. If you can imagine, if they just did better on their stage 1, they are easily a top seed, and that is extremely scary to think about, knowing that they're seed 9th. They've managed to keep a couple of players from last year, Konkal, Pavin, and AOMDCO, so still a mix of old players, mix of new blood. Definitely going to be a very young and exciting team to watch out for, and they will be facing Team Netherlands.
Yeah, this is we're getting some extremely scary teams now. Like, even just look at that stage 3 score. 2985k means that they averaged, on average, 995k for that map across the team, which is just insane to say on like a map like stage 3. You know, even if it is physically one of the easier maps, that's just incredible accuracy, consistency ratio. The whole thing has to be there. So now we're seeing just extremely strong teams now, and top 8 coming up soon.
Yep, here we go. Our top 8, our official top seed of the 2023 edition of the 4K World Cup. We have Vietnam. They were 12th seed last year, now coming in 8th, and all thanks to a very supreme SV stage, LN overall, and stage 2.
Yeah, a bit of a mix over here. This is a team that can do basically everything. We can see there are no weak seedings here. Worst seed is stage 8, but even then, you know, seed number 14 at stage 8, hard to really say that they don't have the physical capability to go late game. They definitely have a lot of strong players, all stages of the tournament, all skill sets, little bit better at the LN and SB overall, but yeah, this is going to be an exciting team to see how far they go.
Yeah, they've managed to keep 4 players from last year, Lot, Cyvalia, Manifesto, and Tridon, bringing in 2 new players, Vixao and Tokiyume. So if you're a Vietnam fan, definitely be excited, because this team is going to definitely shake this tournament up quite a bit.
Yeah, something else as well that's going to shake the tournament as well. We have the next one coming up, and if you've been keeping track, you'll have noticed that Chile has not appeared yet, and it is going to be seed number 7 for them. Actually, I think this is a fairly big increase from last year's seeding overall. And it's going to be, well, there's look at these ranks. There is not a single map that Chile played where they got double digits, all single digits. For every single stage.
I can say one thing for sure is that Mewtwo has finally found a team that, you know, like over the last few years, it's always been Mewtwo and then a couple of like decent players, but not extremely good players to like keep up with Mewtwo. But this time round, last year they finished 17th in qualifiers. That's a 10 placing improvement, and that really, like, that team change, you know, when they've kept Mewtwo, they kept Zan, they kept Nyawa, which is previously known as Ryzt, RHYZT, but they've brought in Bambi, Seika, Mindro Kokomi. This is such an unknown roster that is going to prove so much this year.
Yeah, this is terrifying. These scores are just terrifying, and I think I can speak for almost everyone when I say that I am very glad that this is the year that we could potentially, you know, see Muka play some of the late game, you know, finals level perhaps, pool of the tournament. That would be very exciting to see how well they can perform late game.
Yeah, now we can move on to the 6th seed, and that will be Indonesia, basically just being a powerhouse in the Rise, finishing top 3 in stage 8. Very consistent scores overall as well. Like, if you look at the Rise scores, the deviation is by just 1,600 points.
That's some consistency right there, despite, you know, the differences in, you know, general difficulty between the maps, different styles. 2980k for all of the Rise maps, that's strong. That's really strong. So we're going to see a lot of Rise ability coming out of Indonesia, going to be very Rise focused, you would have to imagine, but at the same time, you know, 5th place on stage 5, they can definitely play LNs as well.
Yeah, they're coming off a 9th seed from last year, so just barely missing out top seed last year. Now this time, firmly putting their grasp on that top seed position. They've kept 5 players, only changing 1 single player, and that is adding in ASCII Fanboy. So they've managed to keep their 2022 core, and it has paid off.
Yep, for sure. And now, top 5 is imminent. Brazil is going to be the 5th seed. This is going to be, I mean, oh my god, I just saw the LN score. Okay.
First.
Oh my god, okay.
First.
Whoa, okay, that's the first number 1 that we're seeing. Stage 4, number 1, and I think, I can't say I expected this, but at the same time, it makes quite a lot of sense, you know, given we have players such as Demi Fiend on the Brazilian team. This is just such a strong LN team overall. This is crazy.
Yeah, they are basically the best LN team in this tournament, but also, being 5th place, you would think, like, as a team like Brazil that finished 1st in qualifiers last year, blowing out the qualifier competition, and that really all comes down to the players that left this team, Lothus and Ameron, being huge absence being
Yeah, Oros
from this
too.
team. Yeah, Oros as well. They've
Yeah.
managed to bring in some interesting talent in Zerg, Natural, and Mikumeru. But yeah, this is going to be a huge tournament for those three players.
Yeah, I think losing Lothus and Oros in particular really did hurt the team's Rice. As we can see, the Rice seeding a bit lower. Definitely, well, a bit lower. They were first last year in Rice, but yeah, it hurt their Rice seeding, their hybrid seeding just a little bit here, as well as the SV. But they have kept the LN core, and it definitely shows. They are still one of the best teams in the world at LN for sure.
But yeah, we can move on to number 4, and that is Team Philippines. They finished second in the qualifiers last year, so a little bit of a drop-off, but this team is far from a drop-off. This is such a scary roster. 5 players returning from last year, the only change being Cub03, and we can already see like some instances of extreme prowess. You see stage 1 being second right there, and then you have stage 7 also second place.
Yeah, this is overall one of the strongest teams that we have in the tournament. I think most people actually predict Philippines to be an easy top 3. Given how they performed last year, they almost beat, just by a couple hundred points, almost beat the eventual winners of the tournament in semifinals. So, of course, Philippines has a big opportunity now to make top 3 once again. Seed 4 seems a little bit strange, but we'll get to that in a second. Overall, really, really well-balanced roster. Has the SV, has the Rice, has the LN, has the hybrid. There's no weaknesses here. All 6 players contribute quite a lot to this team.
Yeah, just a reminder that this is a team that brought the eventual champion South Korea to tiebreaker, and this is essentially going to be the same exact team, so watch out for Philippines this year.
Yeah, and I've seen it in chat as well. There's been a few people that have mentioned something, keeping track of the teams that have showed up so far. The top 3, some people have mentioned, but we're going to move on to the 3rd place, and this is the one that I think a little bit less people would have predicted being up this high. At seed number 3, it is going to be Japan, and to no one's surprise, the SV score is ridiculous. This is just absurd.
I mean, you say that their stage 1 is absurd, but their Tanimuho score first? Like, Japan as a hybrid team? I cannot imagine that.
Japan, you say Japan is a hybrid team. Look at their LN scores as well. They're 3rd in LN. Well, 4th overall, but 3rd on both of the maps. This is like bizarre to see for anyone that's been following, the Japanese team for a long time. Saying that Japan is an LN team is a crazy statement, but they might be an LN team.
I mean, there's really only one reason why, or well, a couple of reasons, but one big reason why, and it's just that first name on the team sheet, Kuke.
Yeah, not only Kruke as well. The addition of I don't know how we're gonna pronounce this on the stream. 9990 underscore Y. I don't know. Are we just gonna say Y? Or just 9? I don't know. But
I'll probably say the full thing, honestly. 9990.
That name at the bottom, 9990. That they got some really strong scores in the LN as well. So that is an addition to the team that helps them quite a lot in the LN department. Both of the quote unquote new additions, to call Kruke new.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, overall, very, very scary team. And their Rice, of course, AM Duskia being on the roster, Sleek Girl being on the roster. You cannot be comfortable winning Rice against this team either.
Yeah, this has to be their best roster since 2020, where they managed top 2. So we'll see if they'll be able to get all the way to the grand finals this time around. And with that being said, put your predictions in chat, by the way. You have like a couple of seconds on who's going to be second, who's going to be first. There are only 2 countries left. You probably already know which 2 countries they are. But with that being said, our seed number 2 is the United States. Just kind of falling off a little bit on the stage 1. But otherwise, they take 3 different number 1 spots on Outer Blazers, Corsair Charge, and Onslaught.
3 different I believe that only leaves 2 left that we haven't seen. But yeah,
That is
the
correct.
most number ones that we've seen from any team here, United States, and some of those number ones are just straight up absurd. Like, look at stage 8. Look at stage 8. What? I don't understand that. I don't
Look at
understand
stage
that.
1! What is that average on stage 1?
Stage 2, you mean?
Oh, sorry, stage 2,
Yeah,
yes.
Ultra Blizzards, but the From's map, 2992, but 298 set. This Rice is just ridiculous. They are absolutely the best team at Rice, at least from the eye test looks this year at the start. And looking like the best team at Hybrid as well, from just their late game stage 6 score here. So overall, it looks really, really strong. The SV, as you said, bringing them down just a little bit, along with their stage 3 being number 6. But of course, with these seedings, you know that it was extremely close between these top 2 teams. But of course, everyone knows what the last team left has to be now. It's going to be South Korea, number 1, the winner of last year in an incredibly exciting fashion here. Actually, this stage, the SV is a little bit worse than on United States, but it's just the consistency overall, being top 3 in almost every single map.
Yeah, so also something to clarify. I think some people might be looking at these scores and think, how did South Korea do better than the United States? Well, the maps that South Korea did better on than the United States were of a larger margin, and that is the reason why South Korea were able to take that first spot over the United States. Yes, United States did take 3 different number 1s, but South Korea, the maps that they were able to beat the United States on, just bigger of a margin than even the United States could beat South Korea on those maps.
Yeah.
So that is why South Korea are here in the first seed. But Brazil finished first seed last year, didn't win the World Cup. What if?
Seedings are not everything. They're not everything whatsoever. It's looking strong. The top teams are looking absolutely ridiculous. So it is impossible to predict right now who is going to win the World Cup. And that's like one of the first times I've ever felt this, right from the start of the tournament as well.
Yeah, I think like only 2020, maybe 2021, where I would confidently say that I have no idea who's going to win. This year, I'm feeling that as well.
Yeah, top few teams, all ridiculously strong, but that is going to close out the entirety of the qualifier results reveal. But stick around, because I think we're going to be still streaming for a little bit more. We're going to be showcasing the first map pool, well, the second map pool, I guess, of the tournament, being the round of 32 showcase coming up in very shortly, I think.
Yeah, and with that also being said, that will also bring our end, me and Potassium F, because we'll be bringing in 2 different casters for this map pool showcase, so do say hi to them when they do come on. But yeah, anything else you would like to add?
No, good luck to all the teams. Just overall, every team, it looks so much stronger than just the level than what we've seen in previous years. So it's going to be really exciting. First few rounds, I expect potentially a couple of seeding upsets to even happen here.
Oh, I mean, we can definitely say that because of the new Protect system that we will definitely be going through over the next couple of weekends, because that's a brand new map picking system.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, make sure you pay attention to those, because teams being able to protect a map is going to help a lot for some of these teams, in particular the ones that have very strong skill sets in one particular skill.
So yeah, SV fans rejoice maybe. But yeah, I think that will round out the qualifier results, so do stay tuned, because we will be bringing you the round of 32 map pool for the 4K World Cup 2023 in just a you all.
Bye.